we've got two gentlemen here. George Turner is a legal practitioner. We also do have Ezekiel Nyaitok, who is the DG Nigeria. First, gentlemen, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
I know many will say, look, why is it that this NDDC is just, there's always one matter or the other whenever you have management change? Or what is the controversy this time?
Yeah, thank you, Jebalin and my friend. Well, the NDDC, of course, as you mentioned, always been in and out, one controversy or the other. And it is not difficult to say why. Of course, the interest, the people of the Niger Delta see the NDDC as one platform, that actually was meant to answer a number of questions, dealing with agitations over the years. And so the expectation is that, oh, finally, and succor is here, or some kind of. And so arguments about whether NDDC is meeting up, arguments about, we have to be here, arguments about, NDDC is not doing this, NDDC is doing that. So it keeps on.
Yeah, because the thing, part of the narrative there is that, look, this is not about the functionality or the capacity of the board in terms of their deliverables. This has got to do with the board, because if people say, look, the brain buffer board is just the ongoing, new board has been appointed, the MD has been appointed, and people think, yes, it's time to move on. What is wrong with that?
Yes, it's just like as I was laying foundation about the interest, with the people. Now, there's a, just as you mentioned, the Brambaifa board was an acting system in interim. And I think on the first or so, there was a press release by the Permanent Secretary General Services in the Office of the SGF announcing some new appointments, of the next board, which meant that the Brambaifa board was leaving. And then, of course, that an acting MD should pilot in interim. Now, that announcement generated a lot of reactions across the region.
Why?
Majorly, the concern is NDDC is established by an act of the Parliament, National Assembly. And it is expected that every action dealing with that organization will follow, the dictates of that law. And that is why we talk about the rule of law. Every decent society is governed
What
by the
law
rule of
has
law.
not been followed now?
Now, the NDDC Act provides for a board. Section 2 of that act establishes a governing board. That act defines membership of that board. And Section 4 particularly provides for rotation of the office of the chairman of the board of NDDC, which states that it shall rotate amongst member states in alphabetical order. In fact, the act went a step further to list actually the states, Abia, Akwa Ibom, A to I, in the manner, that succession should follow. And if you look at recent history, the NDDC started the first board with Ugochukwu Onyema. That was because he comes from Abia, which is A. And then
What
he
year
was
was that?
succeeded.
What year was that?
2000, when the board came. Ugochukwu Onyema was succeeded, the second board of the NDDC, by Ambassador Sameden from Akwa Ibom State. That second board was started with Sameden and ended with Basi Danabia as acting chairman when Sameden left from Akwa Ibom. Then the third governing board was for Bayelsa, B. That board started with AVM Larry Konya and then was completed by Dr. Tala Temepa from Bayelsa. The fourth governing board, Cross River, that board started with distinguished Senator Basi Ewa Henshaw and then was completed very recently, who is the outgone, or, by distinguished Senator Victor Ndoma Egba. And my brother, from C, Cross River, the next alphabet is D, which is Delta. And so the expectation is that Delta State, was going to produce the next chairman.
So you're saying
and that is the law.
Are you saying the next one went to where? E?
I mean, they just flew to E. I don't know how to even describe it. Pius, His Excellency Pius Odubu from Edo State was named, appointed as chairman. And we are asking why. That is not the law. And also, beyond the chairman, the Act provides for a managing director and 2 executive directors. Now, Section 12 also provides, 12.1 actually, also provides that the position of the managing director and the 2 executive directors shall rotate amongst member states by order of production.
Let's bring him in now because you've gone on for a while.
No, it's important that
you will. Just hang on. At least you've established to some extent.
We live in a country of laws which we really don't obey. And we letters of the law, and we don't really look at the spirit of the law. Nigeria is a country that depends on oil. Our economy, is run basically on proceeds from oil. Oil is resident largely within the Niger Delta. And it was only commonsensical for us to ensure that the people of the region were happy with what was coming out and what would come to them, as much as possible. Though they would have preferred the situation where what happened in the earlier republic applied, in the sense that what you have, you custody and then give to the center. But if the center must take what you have, at least let there be a commensurate returns to the people. It was on the basis of this thinking, which makes sense, that they said, aside from the 13% derivation, let us also give them the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission, and let us also give them the Niger Delta Ministry. So the NDDC had a primary function of coming in to address the developmental challenges of the area, okay? Now, it's true that the law envisaged that people may not be fair, and for everybody to be happy, let us look in terms of how we can rotate the offices. Now, when they created the offices became very powerful. So we looked at the proceeds and the power behind the office in 2 ways. Let me even tell you 2 powers behind the office. The very first is that whoever is the MD of NDDC, whichever state he comes from, he's extremely powerful. So there could be a situation where the MD should come from my state, and I'm like, no, I don't want an MD, I want an ED, because the ED is lower in terms of capacity, so I don't want competition. We've not looked into that. The second thing is that the past commissions that we've had, what have been the problems? NDDC has become a cash cow of some sort to the powers that be. Sometimes if a governor appointed the MD. Let's talk of the office of the MD. That of the chairman is, if like he knows, the chairman, I won't use the word ceremonial, but in terms of the running of the system, the person that is relevant is the MD. So let's focus on the office of the MD.
Does that suggest in any way that the governor is fueling who becomes MD so they can leverage
the
it?
governors have always been interested in who becomes. For instance, if it's supposed to be coming to my state, okay, I must control the person because the office is so powerful. NDDC is about projects, and project is what runs every system. Project is what gets the boys for you. You know, we run to any man that has the capacity to take care of us because we've weaponized
So
poverty.
by inference, if I could,
Yes.
what he's suggesting,
Yes.
if I infer from that, is
Yeah.
that these appointments, if they don't go right, as he suggests that they haven't, may influence or give rise to some sort of agitation in the region.
Because it has become the place of us, the elite, to call the attention of the generality of the people that we've been pawns in the hands of these chess masters for too long. Okay? The governors, to the best of my knowledge, are interested in the power factor. I thought that if they were concerned about development, the first thing they would say is, wait a minute, please excuse me. Who is this person that you're making the managing director of NDDC? And unfortunately for them, by the time you put the profile of Mr. Okumagba, even his worst enemy would say, this guy is extremely competent. So they are saying...
But does it tick that box, that,
Yeah.
that provision that says it needs to come alphabetically?
Let me tell you something. We run in a system where I'm not going to sit down here and tell you it ticks the box. It does not tick the box. I'm sick and tired of ticking the box. I live in the Niger Delta. I know the problems that we have. I'm looking for a solution to the problem. Please tell me about the competence and the capacity of the man you are giving to be in charge of that organization.
No, that's understandable,
Yes,
but I'm saying there's the
yes.
act. So are you
Yes.
saying we jettison that provision in the act?
No. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. By the time you look at what he has said, I want him to juxtapose that with what has helped Nigeria over the years. If Mr. President, in his wisdom, I'm not a lawyer, and I believe that the rule of law should be paramount and sacrosanct. You understand me? But if Mr. President sits down, for instance, he would tell me, by the time that Danabia was removed, who was made the MD? It was a guy from Rivers State. So it's been done. Yes. Yes, this lady, she was the lady now. She's from Rivers, brother.
Okay, maybe.
What's your disagreement?
Please tell me.
You see,
Before Nsima came.
you see,
Between Sima and Danabia.
Let me say this.
Is that cemetery?
We must,
Yes,
we
cemetery
must,
is
we
from
must,
Rivers.
we must, as a people, and I say this with all, amount of the level of seriousness, subscribe to doing things in line with the rule of law.
We get your point, but he's saying who was there before Nsima came?
When Danabia's board, that was the fourth governing board, was dissolved, the next managing director, in line with the act, was appointed from the same Akwa Ibom state where Danabia comes from, in the person of Esima Ekere. Wow. But before that appointment of Esima Ekere, there was an acting MD seminary that held an interim that position.
Okay.
The law.
So that is insignificant.
The law has no provision for an acting
interim.
MD or interim. For instance, now, the announcement is that the most senior director in the commission acts until a board comes in. It's normal. So
Seminary was the most senior officer at the time.
And it was for the first time in history that an acting MD of the NDDC was, being brought from outside. The tradition has always been that when a board, is dissolved.
So it goes to what he said the other time.
I'm coming. Just a few
No,
minutes.
he go. I mean, just answer that.
It goes to, the continuous show that we are a people and a society that do not stay on the side of the law.
Okay, let's hear him complete his floor.
Thank you. We sit here. We've sat down here. He's been in NDDC for a very long time. And the question is, what is the perception of the people? What has been the problems of the boards? Why have the boards been rotated for so long? And as we are now, I would like to have his honest opinion on the present leadership of the NDDC that has been put up. I think that a time has come when the president, because I tried to find out, none of these people that is on the board is somebody that I have any relationship with. I'll say that. Because I had to find out what is really going on. And somebody told me in confidence that this issue of political interest, this issue of command and control, this issue of NDDC not having a focus came to bear in the presidency. And they sat down and did a thorough... I've always been one who fights me, it's a president's appointment. Anybody who knows me knows that, because I've been very unhappy. But for the first time, somebody I have no personal relationship with whatsoever. The last MDs have been my buddies. Mr. Danabia, Mr. Nsima Ekere, they've been my buddies, okay? But for now, I'm standing to say, I've seen a man, I've gone to read his profile, and for once, I'm starting to see a kind of professional approach to...
One of the things that would bother a lot more people than the people that you're talking about is how effective has the NDDC been?
Thank you.
So far, that's one.
Thank
but
you.
more importantly, let me ask you, since you say he's been there for a long time, is the NDDC structure strong enough to stand on its own with or without a particular person at the top?
Yeah.
You see, when people talk, I always like to stay on the side of the law. The NDDC Act.
Let's talk about the NDDC in
what is the
action.
spirit of the law?
Excuse me, sorry.
When you talk about structure,
What's the spirit of
when
the
you
law?
talk about structure,
Yes, please.
the foundation is the law.
I agree.
And that's why I am an advocate of systems, being strong to function.
Good.
Now, the NDDC as a board is well structured under the law. Well structured.
Okay.
It's so structured that there is not even a tenorship, for instance, an MD. Tenorship in the NDDC Act is defined as per the board. So it is not a business where one man, like he seemed to suggest that, a chairman is ceremonial, MD is and that is why the people now want to manipulate the law to produce MD in a state that should not have an MD, because the feeling is that if you have the MD, you have everything. And that's where your question becomes relevant. We should rather talk about NDDC as a well-structured system that works.
Now, could you tell us?
An institution with a strong MD.
There's a question he asked, which I would like you to answer, if you may. How has the NDDC performed based on this structure over the years? Can you give an analysis? That's why I say, is it designed to fail, or is it designed to be sustainable? And what has been the problem? The spirit of the law or the letter of the law?
Let me say this in all fairness, not because I have been there, but I like to put on record that the NDDC has been great in terms of, keeping core mandates.
Which are?
Is debatable. Anybody may want to disagree. But the NDDC was designed to be an interventionist system to coordinate developmental issues around the Niger Delta.
Has that activity been fair across the Niger Delta?
We are not there yet, but yes, it's been fair.
Has it been equitable in all of the different...
And that is why I tell you that...
I'm talking about in terms of its effect, its impact in the Niger Delta?
I am telling you.
Okay.
Look, every interest is protected. In NDDC, if you want to do a budget, every state has, columns of provisions for their own projects.
Let me bring this in.
And then the regional.
Much as you've highlighted the positions of the law, but I don't know if you've seen the statement from the NDYC, the Niger Delta Youth Council. They are also suggesting that why would the governors be questioning the newly appointed board? Because they think, is it that all of a sudden the governors think that they can question it if they themselves cannot account for some of the funds that they've gotten? So why are they not on the same page with you concerning the law?
Yes, the governors, maybe they've not come clean for us to understand what their own issue with these appointments. If it is, that they want to make, they would have loved to make input, or those being mentioned or appointed are not in their interest, then they miss the point.
The thing is, because
the point is that if the governors are saying that these appointments are not in compliance with the enabling law establishing the NDDC,
I'll tell you what the governor
then they are
said.
correct. And any other person, arguing on the other side is wrong.
Okay.
Look,
let me.
You open it. Just open it and hold on.
You know what?
To a society that respect law.
Go ahead.
If you go through the social media and all reactions, you'll see two things. Number one, unlike the Niger Delta youth that are always like, no, we no agree, we no agree. In this case, it is not the Niger Delta youth. It is the governors, and it is instructive. And the governor said, we were not consulted. They didn't say you didn't follow due process. They said, we were not consulted. And the role of the governors is advisory to the board. In terms of appointment, is the prerogative of Mr. President. So the question is, why is it suddenly that the governors are the people complaining and not the generality of the people, which is always the reverse?
I'm looking at now.
Yes, please.
About one of the dailies about militants in Niger Delta threatening to cause collateral damage. According to this report, the Reform Niger Delta Avengers, RNDA, and a coalition of 9 militant groups, gave out this statement. So apparently, they are not happy with it.
Saying what?
They're saying that they're not happy with this. And in fact, they're saying that they might cause collateral damage, according to this report. So we have two major issues.
Let me land on what I was saying.
Okay.
The very first thing is that I've said something, and I go back to that, and I will always hit on that. Over the years, what is the general perception? I would, at this point, take liberty to say something. Mr. Danabia was my very good friend. And the position of the federal government under Jonathan didn't seem too favorable towards NDDC. And I remember having a meeting with the Minister of Finance as at that time. And she made a statement that NDDC has been a basket where you pour water and everything leaks.
Okay. Well,
so the perception of NDDC has not, in spite of all the efforts they make, for now.
Let me quickly say that he doesn't know the tension that the quick intervention of the governors, have.
But he lives in the area.
No, he may not know.
No, he's in Lagos. No. You are in Lagos. I am the one in the Niger Delta.
He doesn't even know what we are doing.
No. You are in Lagos. I'm the one living there.
If the governors didn't take that
No, brother. You are in Lagos. I am the one living there. Let me say that. I came here from there.
Let me say this. As a lawyer, I feel very sad that conversations could turn towards suggesting that laws be suspended for whatever reason.
Is that what you're suggesting?
No. I am suggesting that the time has come when we must look in terms of capacity, competence, and performance.
Okay.
And for today, I want them to fault the board on the basis of that.
I feel also insulted coming from Bayelsa to say that there is no one competent that can be found in Bayelsa that should now produce the MD by the law, and that it is Delta that by the law should not produce MD as at this time, that should have MD because you have read somebody's profile. So if there's no one in Bayelsa, and look at River State.
So are you saying you should go to Bayelsa or Delta State?
River State is the third largest.
No, the immediate
thing
MD
I'm afraid we need to go.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
Executive position, and
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.